Hello, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Will Martin UFC predictions. Here for UFC 282, Jan Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev for the undisputed UFC light heavyweight championship after we had the whole Prohaska v Glover 2 fight fall through, which was a little bit of a because I thought the first fight has honestly been the best fight this year that I've watched. I was looking forward to that rematch. But we've got a title fight on here. We've got Paddy in the co-main event. I think overall it's still a pretty solid card with some fights on there that I am really looking forward to. I do think there's good betting opportunities if you can get in there and look close enough and really dig in and try and find some spots. And I'm looking forward to finishing the year strong. I've had a really good betting year. I have kind of felt like I've let my YouTube channel down, but with health not being at its best and some other things outside, in fact, real life stuff, I'm looking forward to going into my 10th year on YouTube of really trying to get my channel going again because it has flourished the second part, if not this whole entire year. But like I say, mitigating factors outside, I've kind of put like a big foot on my backside where it's had to stop me. I've had to really prioritize my health to be here in the long term for my kids. So looking forward to breaking down this fight card. We've got another one next week to finish off, and then we've got a month's break, and I'm really looking forward to moving into 2023. I'm going to be doing 2 shows a week. I've decided on that. It's going to be predictions are going to come out early on probably a Sunday or a Monday, and then on a Thursday evening I'm probably going to have a guest on, or I'm just going to talk about what I expect kind of moving into the weekend. Maybe the props have dropped, see if there's something I like there, and then I will give you some of the bets if I have them. And then just really looking ahead to the upcoming year in the UFC. So, again, there's so many people that come out and support me through the DMs that have been in touch when I've not been making videos and on here on YouTube. I've had so many emails as well. I really do appreciate, guys. Like it doesn't go unnoticed. And you know, if you've got in touch with me, I'll get back in touch with you as soon as I can. I just thank you for your support. It's been pretty nice. It's pretty nice having people on your side and people wanting to see your content. And I'm really looking forward to kind of re-establishing myself as and my channel going into year number 10, which is a bit of a milestone for myself. I've been here many, many years, and there's many great predictors out there now. More people. I remember the days when it was just a few of us. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting back in that. So there's a little thing going into 2023 to kind of keep an eyes out for me, guys. So if you're not subbed to the channel, hit that sub button. But if you can, please leave a like and please leave a comment. If you agree, disagree, whatever it may be, just help me and help my channel if you can. It'd be much, much appreciated. So 3 minutes in, let's get into the fights. That's what you're here for. A couple of the early fights are ones I was like, I wasn't too sure about looking into them all too much. There was other fights I was more interested in. This first fight, I mean, Cameron Simon against Stephen Kozlow, both guys 6-0. Both guys have fought really low caliber oppositions. You got the Simon guy who I know a little bit about because he fought in a few Scottish guys actually know this kid that was on the EFC scene over in South Africa. And the Scottish guys that I know that have fought in South Africa, see, like the shows are massive over there. So there's obviously an appetite for MMA over there in South Africa and Africa in general, which the UFC will probably get into within the next couple of years, you would think, considering how many champions they've had. But this is the guy, I watched some of his stuff, fought really, like I say, low caliber opposition. And but with some of the things I did like, he's decent. He's not, I mean, he's young and he's kind of green, but he's still moving into his kind of overall game where he's trying to put it all together. And I think in this one here, I see the betting line. I looked at the betting line this one. I was like, sheesh, like he's nearly minus 300. I'm like, when did they give him a line like that? I would never have put him that high. But when you go back and watch Koslow's fights, you will see that he's fought a very low caliber of opposition. He's also fought guys that he's fought a lot of his fights that have not made it out the first round. So there's some question marks there. But he has been 5 rounds. That's a plus. He has a title fight in Africa. That's a plus. He won a belt there. So fair play to the dude for that. But overall, his main caliber opposition is not good. But I think he's fairly decent all around at this young stage of his career. But he still has to move into his progressions, moving into the next few years. I mean, the betting line warrants that he's like highly implied to win, like 70 to 75% implied to win this fight, maybe even higher. I'm not very good with those percentages or whatever it may be. But when I watch Kozlov, I mean, he has definitely fought very, very low caliber of opposition as well. So it's hard to really lay down money in this one. But I feel that this year, especially with underdogs in the very first fight of the night, a lot of them have hit this year. And this guy is up there plus 275 that I see over here in the UK right now. And I think in this fight that he has an opportunity, if he can get in some spots. I've seen some things where he's submitted black belts. He can be very, very slick on the ground. But again, he's really fought no caliber of opposition whatsoever. Barely been a pro a couple of years. Should he be in the UFC? I don't think so. Should he be in the Dana White Contender Series maybe next year? Maybe have a couple more fights, 7-0, 8-0. Probably that's the spot he should have went in. But I'm going to take a flyer on the underdog here in Stephen Kozlov. I don't know why. Like I say, it's hard to really make a definitive pick on two guys with kind of low caliber opposition who are facing off, both undefeated, both under the big lights for the first time. Maybe not so much Simon Sykes. I mean, he did have a decent sized fight in EFC, but I think I'm going to pick Kozlov via submission. I'm going to pick him second round. Not overly confident in that, but these are the spots this year that I've kind of missed out a little bit on betting, because the spots that I've liked, I'm like, I should bet it and haven't did it, and it really annoys me when I don't bet it. But again, it's two young guys in the sport making their way into UFC. I'll take Kozlov. Really not confident though. Vinicius Salvador against Daniel Lacerda de Silva. This, I like de Silva a lot, just by the way he fights, because for the first 90 seconds to 2 minutes into a fight, this guy is all action, comes for you, comes for your head, looks to take you out. And outside of that, he doesn't really offer much. Kind of surprised the UFC are keeping around, but in all honesty, his fights have been very, very entertaining, because he is so aggressive and he comes at you and he looks to put on a performance and looks to get you out of there. He's 3 losses in the UFC. Jeff Molina, that's not a bad loss in my opinion. I think Molina's pretty solid. Francisco Figueiredo, that's not great. Got caught with a knee bar in that one there. And then he lost to Victor Altamirano, where he got knocked out in the first round. So this is a do-or-die fighter, and I like kind of guys like that, especially coming from, what was the guys at Wildcat, I think it was, that comes from that camp as well, Shooter Box. Very, very good fighters, very aggressive fighters, and look to put on a show. But outside of a couple of minutes, this guy's got nothing. When I looked at Vinicius Salvador, this is the guy that I know right now that if this guy really comes into UFC and puts all together, I think he's actually a guy that I will get behind quite a lot. I like what I see from him. 14-4 record, fighting out the Ribas family team out there in Brazil. Watched a couple of these early losses, and honestly, I think too, with the losses that he has, I don't think the opposition is that bad at all. The Costa fight, I think it's a guy you should maybe keep an eye on the next couple of years. That was like 4 or 5 years ago he lost that fight. He has lost another one since then against Rafael Filo when he got taken out. So he can be taken out, and that's where Silva initially is going to be really, really coming for him, looking to take him out early. And like I say, that is previous there. I do think it's been a higher weight classes as well, so he is coming down to 125. I think some of those fights were like 155, so he's probably grossly undersized in those spots. But since then, I mean, he's went on a bit of a run. 4 fights, 4 stoppages, all TKOs. Knocked out Shannon Ross, who comes from Australia, back in August, and has got his opportunity to really finish out the year strong here. I like what I see from him. I think he's a very, very dangerous fighter, and I think he's at minus 200 here. I think he's a parlay piece, but what I like more in this fight is that the fight doesn't go to decision, which I think will be a similar-ish price, because, like I say, Silva can maybe get him out of there early. If not, I think in the middle part of this fight, the late part of this fight, I think Salvador can get him out. So my pick's going to be Salvador. I'm going to go late second round, TKO into that one there. TJ Brown against Eric Silva. Now, this was one initially, I watched a couple of fights of TJ Brown. I've bet on TJ Brown before, and he's let me down before. And he was plus 150 at that point. And I was like, right, I'm going to bet TJ Brown. Went away for probably 12 hours. Went for a sleep, went to work, whatever, came back, and I seen him was down like plus 125. I was like, right, I'm out. I don't want that. He's been bet down to like plus 100. So this fight it's an absolute pick-em right now. And TJ Brown, I mean, he's dogged as anything. He comes forward, he looks to really bring the fight to you, will look to take the fight to the ground, try and dominate you with some of his wrestling, but he just makes lapses in his game that people can take advantage of. And he's facing off here against Eric Silva, who's also making his UFC debut, coming off the Dana White Contender Series with a win over Basner's off in the first round. What I noticed about this guy that I really like now, he's a little bit old. I think he's in his mid-30s, quite late on his MMA career here, even though he's only had like 10 fights. What I liked was his ground and pound. I was like, oh my God, you watch the Lux fights. I think they're on Fight Pass. This guy has got some serious ground and pound, and he's got a submission game on top of it to really hurt you. So I think Brown could initially get takedowns. I can see Silva getting back up. I think if Silva was to get him down, I think he could really do some damage on TJ Brown. Now, I've seen TJ Brown was actually at Glory MMA, and there's all this furore at the minute with James Krause and fighters that if you're associated with that guy, you're not getting fights. Especially, I've seen a couple of fights for next year already off. I see Jeff Molina's pulled out his fight. I think David Onama might be another one who's probably going to come out of his fight as well. And there might be other guys too. But he's been at Glory MMA, but he's also had, I don't think that's his main gym. I think he's home in Arkansas. I think it's Westside MMA. That's his main gym. So maybe that's how he kind of gets away with it a little bit there. But initially I was going to play TJ Brown, but now I think I'm leaning on the Silva side here. But again, it's a big thing coming in here. UFC debut under the lights, T-Mobile Arena, Las Vegas. You know, it's a big thing, especially when you look. TJ Brown's got experience in the UFC. He's fought hard. He's got some wins. But I'm going to go Silva via decision. But I think it could be one of these very, very close fights where it could end up like a split decision. So no play for me. I'm going to sit back and enjoy, kind of gather more data on Eric Silva, and then kind of go from there. So moving on, Billy Quarantillo against Alexander. I was going to say there his nickname, but I'm not going to say it. Alexander Hernandez, who makes the move down to 145 pounds. He moves down to the featherweight division for the first time here. I think Hernandez will be dangerous early, but I haven't seen enough of like Quarantillo to see like if he gets smashed out early. I just don't see that happening. And Quarantillo can put a beating on guys with his output. And I don't think that Hernandez is initially going to survive that for 15 minutes of the fight. Now, he might have his spots in the first round. I do think that Hernandez has had his UFC career has been so, he comes in, he blasts Beneil Dariush. I think this is nearly 5 years ago as well. That's kind of crazy to me. Comes in there, blasts Dariush. I remember betting him against Olivier Aubin-Mercier. I think he was a plus 125 dog. Really liked that spot for him. And you think of those two guys, if they fight nowadays, you probably be on the Mercier side. At least I would think I would. Mercier's really flourished since he's kind of left the UFC, went to the PFL and won the big tournament over there. And then he had all that momentum going into the Cerrone fight and really talked himself out of that fight. He really put the fight into Cerrone where Cerrone really wanted to hurt this guy, talked a big game, got blasted out of there. And really since then, I think he's been... Anytime he's got those standard fighters that are at a decent level, he loses. I mean, the Trinaldo one, I still don't think he won that fight. I bet Trinaldo, and I was pissed that never got that sway in Texas, but that was his home state. Drew Dober, solid, pretty much a ranked guy. Grutzmacher on the fringes of not being with the UFC. Moises is solid. Breeden, got him out there as he should, and then he faced Moicano and got absolutely split in that one where he got subbed. So and now he's making the move down to 145. I think his path to victory is to win very early on, to land something big on Quarantillo, really hurt him. I just don't see. I think Quarantillo's really turned himself into a very decent fighter from what he was many moons ago when he was on the Contender Series. He's just a guy you love to watch fight. End of. The guy puts up serious output. He's in bangers. He's been in some great fights. He's got a couple of losses there. The loss to Burgos, which was a very close fight. I thought he could have had an opportunity to really win that one. The Gavin Tucker one's not a great loss, but a great L in his record. But I think Tucker really put it on him, really raised his kind of game that night. But good wins. Carlisle's an awkward guy to fight, and Gabriel Benitez is a solid journeyman pro who's really tough to get out of there, and he did so in the third round. I like Billy Quarantillo. I think the bet for me in this one is to fight not to go the distance. Under 2.5, I think, is probably a decent spot. But my pick for the fight is going to be Billy Quarantillo in that one there. Moving into the prelims here, we've got Chris Curtis against Joaquin Buckley. Two kind of smaller guys at 185. Both guys have, I think, Curtis has definitely fought middleweight, welterweight like he did the PFL. Joaquin Buckley's talking about he's going to move down. And I will say this, like, I've never been the biggest Joaquin Buckley guy, but I was really impressed in his last fight. And I know I watched him live in Paris. I thought he really took the fight to Imavov across the 15 minutes, but especially late on in that fight where I was kind of expecting Imavov to maybe have the opportunity to take him out. He came into that third round, won that, and gave a really good account of himself. I really enjoyed that fight in Paris. I thought the crowd was great. That was around. It was right before the main event, and Buckley really fought his heart out. Chris Curtis took that L to Jack Hermanson like an absolute baby. His attitude after that one was not great, and then he kind of moved into the Leedsy side, and then was talking all kind of crap on Hermanson after he took an L last week. So his kind of attitude is a little bit shitty to say the least, but there's a lot to like with this guy, actually. I think that his striking, his accuracy is very, very good. I think these two are two big strikers that could potentially hurt one another on the feet. I'm trying to look out for where the fight could go elsewhere. You look at, I've seen a lot of things this week regarding Curtis can't be taken down, he can't do this. And if you go back later in his career, or early in his career, you will see he can be taken down. Bilal Muhammad did it many moons ago. I think Magomed Karimov, or whatever the hell his name is, that dude with the long ass name, he did it in that fight. So he can be taken down. He looks like he's made exponential growth in his takedown defense game since he's come to the UFC. And when he does that, he's got the hands to put you away, like he did against Phil Hawes, like he did, what's the guy? I forgot his name. Brendan Allen. So the guy can put hands on you and can absolutely lay you out as well. Sprawl and brawl, I think, is what he has to do here. I think Buckley, I think he can get him down. I'll be honest, I really do. I think that he can get him to the mat. Whether he can keep him there is another thing. But I think he has to really, really time it well. If Curtis can really get that sprawl on early and really like stop that second part of the game plan that Buckley could go to, then I think over the space of a 15-minute fight, I think he can land more, and I think that he can put it on Buckley. Like I say, I was on Buckley, and I'm trying to think whether I should maybe move my pick across to Curtis, but I think I'm going to stick with my initial gut and what I read in some of the fights there when I was watching. I think I'm going to stick with Buckley. I think the odds at the minute are like minus 125. I can get Buckley here in the UK to plus 125 on Curtis. I see this being a really close fight. The early rounds are going to be where I think this fight's won and lost. If Curtis can get a couple of rounds up, I just don't think, or at least get the early round, I think he's going to be tough to beat. If Buckley does that, then I think what he's shown in his last fight of fighting hard into that third round towards the finish of the fight, then he could win that one. So I'm going to stick with my initial play on Buckley. I actually quite like minus 125. I think that's a fairly half-decent line, honestly. I think the line might go up a little bit. I think it maybe has run up a little bit from what I've seen in other books, especially in America. It's like minus 150 in some spots. So I'll think about a bit, but like I say, I'll need to hurry up because that line will disappear. It probably already has. It might be like minus 140, minus 130 in that region. But pick will be Joaquin Buckley to win that one there. Edmen Shahbazyan against Dalcha Lungiambula. I'm on the Shahbazyan side here. No bet on my part. I'm seeing people message me that are saying they like to parlay Shahbazyan. I'm like, I wouldn't trust that dude for that. But I do think he could put it on Dalcha early where he could knock him out. And that's kind of where I'm kind of taking my stab at maybe Shahbazyan. It is our first round finish. Obviously, the kid had a lot of hype. Came in, got some decent wins, got some decent finishes over some fairly decent guys, especially a Brad Tavares. But since then, he's took an exponential step up in opposition, and just you can tell like the early fights that this guy had where he was fighting cans, not fighting good fighters. He really got rushed along after that initial spurt in his UFC's first 4 fights that he won there, and then he got that step up to face a Brunson, Hermansson, and Imavov, who are ranked guys. So I think he probably need a couple more fights to be in with fighters like that initially, and it's shown that he's not really at that level yet, but he could be because he is still a very young dude. Let me see what age he is. He must be in his mid-20s probably. 25, so he's not that old, just recently turned 25 as well. So still a lot of meat on the bones for this guy to really move and improve himself as a fighter. Dalcha, he's kind of the aspect of his career here where he's probably in his mid to late 30s, 35 years old, so there's a 10-year difference. He's also coming off 3L, so this is a big fight here. Both guys probably fighting for their job. Shahbazyan, I can probably see being kept around. But again, UFC, I need to make cuts, put fighters out there, kind of save on some things. I meant fighters to have in the roster. And he's been stopped in 2 of his last 3 fights as well. Against Puna, he got knocked out in the second round, and Cody Brundage got him out there via guillotine in the first. And Barry was his other loss. I'm going to go on the Shahbazyan side, but would it shock me if this fight goes into later part and maybe Dalcha catches them or something? No, but my initial pick's going to be Edmen Shahbazyan first round, TKO in that one there. Moving on. This is one I'm looking forward to. Bantamweight division, we've got Raul Rosas Jr. against Jay Perrin. And I'm going to come out and say straight away that I have a bet on Jay Perrin, and I'm probably going to catch some flack for that. And that's fine. These are the kind of spots where I don't want to say I have lost a majority of these spots where I maybe underestimate a fighter this early on in the career. I did it with Bryce Mitchell. We're talking about him very, very soon. And I've bet some guys against him that I really shouldn't have bet against him. But in this one here, this kid, there's all this hype over this guy, Rosas Jr. The kid's only 18, so like mad respect for like, he's already had like 5 or 6 pro fights. Fighting at that young age is kind of crazy, you know, and fighting grown-ass men, not that they've been good, but still, stepping in there at that age and having pro fights with these guys is pretty outstanding, to be honest with you. He had his parents sign him off for the Dana White Contender Series. He was only 17 at the point, and he showed that he's relentless with the takedowns and relentless with his games. He's got that young exuberance about him where he goes and goes and goes. And he's got Jay Perrin here. I mean, I bet him it's plus, the line over here in the UK is plus 200 now. I got in at plus 210. I want to say, geez, that was probably Friday last week. And I'm not saying that Jay Perrin is an absolutely outstanding, astonishing fighter, because he really isn't. He's a run-of-the-mill guy that I very much would not be surprised that if he'll be in the UFC within the next 6 months, especially if he wins this. If he loses this one, I don't think he'll be around. But I think he's solid enough and well-rounded enough to win this fight. I really, really do. I don't want to say it's a fade on the young man, but he's still very, very green. And you've got someone that Perrin he's had probably 15 odd fights across his career. But I think he's solid enough to get out some of the spots that Rosas will put him in. Rosas is going to go hard for 15 minutes, and I can see why the UFC would match him up with a Jay Perrin, because I don't think he's the highest quality fighter on the roster. I think he's acting like a bit of a man-child on Twitter, the way he's kind of really downplaying this kid. I don't think he should do that. He thinks he's going to run over this kid. I don't see that at all. I'm not disrespecting this kid at all. But I do think it's very, very early in his career, and I think that Perrin can give him some problems. I don't think there's anything amazing about the skill set of Rosas, but it could turn into a thing in a few years where you've seen this guy in early on and he's really refining his skills, and you've seen it initially. And I think this is a big step up in competition. I think it's fairly obvious there. What we've seen from Perrin, he's got a decent skill set. I think he's got an advantage on the feet if he can keep it there. And I think I've seen enough of him to get up a couple of times when Rosas takes him down, but Rosas is going to be on him non-stop to take him down. So that's something that Perrin has to really be on his P's and Q's about it. I took the shot. I think that he knocks him out or maybe hurts him at some spot. But I know kind of what I'm getting myself into with this bet here and laying it on a low caliber opposition guy, but I'm taking the shot. It's just a 1 unit poke. And like I say, I've did this with previous fighters before where I maybe not learned my lesson fully, but at that number, I'll take a shot. I'll see what this kid's all about, and then we'll get more data on Rosas Jr. and see where he goes in the future. So Jay Perrin for me in that fight there. Jairzinho Rozenstruick against Chris Daukaus is the fight that really finishes off the prelims for us, gets us going into the main card here. And the Daukaus brothers have not had the best of years, let's put it that way. Kyle's coming off that knockout last week to Eric Anders, which I liked Anders now. I just didn't bet him in that spot. It's hard to really trust Anders, but this is another big fight for Daukaus after he made the initial step up to face your top 10 legit guys, maybe even top 5 guys at one point. They are at one point. So, and getting knocked out in both. And Derek Lewis and Curtis Blades. Now I think he's taken a little bit of a step back, but not too big of a step. He's probably around about where he needs to be. And Jairzinho Rozenstruick, who's also, I believe, let me bring that up. He's coming off a couple of losses himself. To Alexander Volkov and to Curtis Blades mentioned as well. So I kind of see this being a bit of a slow first round. I do think that Daukaus will be aggressive. He is kind of known for being a little bit aggressive. He will fly in and attempt to throw some strikes, and he can get caught with that. And that's where he has to be careful with a guy like Rozenstruick, because he plants his feet, he's got big power in his hands, but he is very, very low volume. So this could be a little bit of a staring match, I think, initially. I think maybe see Daukaus come out, throwing low kicks, maybe trying to initiate a clinch against the cage to maybe get him down to the mats or whatever. I kind of see this being a little bit of a low output kind of fight, honestly. I can see this going maybe into the later part, but knockout is always an option with heavyweight fights, obviously. But I actually think this is going to go to decision. I've got Rozenstruick to win a close-ish decision. I just don't think that Daukaus will do enough, but I could also maybe see a late third-round stoppage for Jairzinho if Daukaus realises he's down on the cards. The more substantial strikes have been landed on the Rozenstruick side. So I'm going to go a decision win for Jairzinho Rozenstruick in that one there, but we'll not have a bet in that one. Jairzinho's just going to be the pick. Moving on to the main card of the pay-per-view, guys, and if you're still around, throw a like on the video, and then, like I say, if you've got any questions for me, if you've got any thoughts that you'd like to throw in the comment section, please do that. I will get back to you as soon as I can. This is the fight in the card I'm looking forward to the most. Two guys that I like, I don't want to say like, but I admire a lot about their skill sets. Bryce Mitchell against Ilia Topuria. I mentioned before, Bryce Mitchell, I've tried to fade this guy, and I went back and looked this morning, like, who did I try and fade this guy against? Yeesh. I've bet some pretty bad fighters against Bryce Mitchell, and when I look at it now, I'm thinking this. There was other spots out there where I should have tried to fade him, maybe against more established guys. Matt Sales, I bet Matt Sales -110 to beat this guy. Terrible bet. Not going to deny that. Then, oh my God, I can't believe I made this bet. Charles Rosa +150. That was freaking terrible on my part. Andre Fili, he's an established guy, tough guy. That bet I don't mind so much. Never bet him against Barboza. I left that fight. I think he's got Barboza there. But I've made a couple of terrible bets. And I mean, Bryce Mitchell has shown that he's a very capable fighter in the UFC, and he's making big, big strides. This is a matchup where I think he's disrespecting Topuria a little bit. He's saying that he's gaining nothing from this fight. I don't believe that one iota. Topuria is a guy that, if you've been around my channel, I made a video 3, probably 4 years ago. He was one of my most hyped prospects outside the UFC that had to be in the UFC. And initially he came in and he's did great since he's come into the UFC. But getting back to kind of Bryce Mitchell, takedown machine, heavy top game, good submission game. Doesn't really finish his submissions all too much. He's had multiple submission attempts against Rosa and Mitchell, Fili, I should say. I never really finished finished anything outside the twister that he caught in Matt Sales in the very first round. But I mean, he's taken that caliber position of Moffat to Sales to Rosa to Fili to Barboza, named guys, especially the last couple of guys. And now he's facing a guy that's kind of coming in a little bit under the radar. But if you know, you know, because Topuria to me is a savage. I'm a massive fan of this guy. Have been, like I say, for years on the regionals. I've seen this guy coming. Now he has had a couple of flaws and he has had a couple of things not look so great on him. The fight before he went to UFC, he got dropped in that one there. Showed Hart won the fight. The Jai Herbert fight, that was up at 155 against a big 155 pounder, a big lightweight. Got dropped in that one. Came back. Devastating finish though, an absolute devastating finish. Bet him early on in his UFC career. Got him against Zalal, got him against Damon Jackson. And I mean, Jackson and Ryan Hall are really tough matchups. Stylistically, he blasted through Damon Jackson. He bided his time against Ryan Hall. And then he got the stoppage of Jai Herbert and got himself a performance bonus. The one thing I am a little bit worried is this is back down at 145 and he's not been down there for nearly 18 months. So, or even more than 18 months. So that's something that I think I have to monitor looking at the weigh-ins coming forward. But this guy is a Greco-Roman background. There is videos of him online with some great throws, some really good grappling. I know some people have come to me regarding the Zalal fight there where he got taken down and looked gassy in that third round. But what you need to remember, what I've told those people is that he came in there like 10 days notice. From what I hear, he had the flu. I think it's something that he's put out there. But he looked dominant in those first two rounds and then just he kind of lost his gas tank in the third there. This is why the weight cut might be a big thing here as well, because Bryce Mitchell, we know what kind of game he's got where he can take you down. Now, initially, coming into this fight, I actually liked the Bryce Mitchell side, and I thought to myself, the line should be flipped. I thought he should have been the favourite and Topuria should have been underdog. I don't know if that's just the Topuria fan in me was like, I would bet that. But when I look back at Topuria, he's got all the aspects to win this fight. If he can keep this fight in the feet, he's going to wreck Bryce Mitchell. But in saying that, Bryce Mitchell might be one of these guys that kind of feints for takedowns, throws a big overhand right like he did against Barboza, and knocks down your opponent. So that's something you always have to kind of keep in mind. But for me, I think I'm going to be on the Topuria side here. The fan in me is sticking around. I've been on the fade train of Bryce Mitchell, been made to look like an absolute a-hole for a couple of years now. So if Bryce comes out here, does what he does, gets a decision, gets a submission, makes me look like an a-hole again, and so be it. I've made worse bets, but if I'm going to bet, at least I'm going to bet on a decent fighter this time, because beforehand I've not really did it outside of Fili. So I'm going to go Topuria. I think that he can knock out Bryce Mitchell in this fight, so I'm going to take Topuria via knockout in the first two rounds here. But I think there will be some sticky spots where Topuria will be on his back, be on his side. He has jiu-jitsu himself, but I just think this is actually a fairly decent spot, and Bryce Mitchell is getting bet down to where I might make a play in Topuria if he can get down to minus 125, minus 110 would be great. I'd be in that, be in on around that number there. Whether he gets there, actually I don't even know the line what it's at right now, but let me check this out. Ilia Topuria, where are you? So he's minus 138, so he's not far off that minus 125 line that I would probably jump at. So Topuria via knockout is going to be my pick there, and I'm going to try and continue and get some money back, or lose some money going against Bryce Mitchell here. So Topuria is the pick. Darren Till against Dricus du Plessis. This is another one here. I'm picking Darren Till, and I feel like a bozo for doing it, because I know what he is, the fighter, and he doesn't show me enough. But I just feel stylistically, this could be a fight that could maybe be in his favour, because Dricus will bring the fight to him. He flurries forward, chin in the air, throws 4 or 5 punch combinations, and he's not one of these guys that will throw single strikes like Till does, where Till could maybe catch him with that left hand, left elbow, left uppercut, left kick like he's shown in his UFC tenure. But it's so hard to trust Darren Till at the betting window, because the guy just does not have any output. And the guy literally only fights once a year. I think his confidence is a little bit short. he shows spots in fights where you think, yeah, that's the damn deal you want to see. But then he kind of fades off and he gets put in positions where he can be taken out, like your Derek Brunson fight, for instance. I thought he had some spots initially in that round he was winning, then got taken to the ground, fight was done. So he's a hard guy to trust at the betting window. And I don't think I'm going to have a bet on him, even though he's plus 150, and I am picking him to win. It's just hard to really put my money down on him, considering how unreliable and untrustworthy he really is. But I do think he can get to Dricus du Plessis. I think du Plessis has been a great addition to the UFC, honestly. He's a guy that I've respected for many years now outside other scenes in MMA out there in South Africa, over in Poland at the KSW. I think he beat one of the best guys outside the UFC, in my opinion, in Roberto Soldic. He knocked him out in the second round there. Then Soldic really got his win back with a vengeance next time at KSW 45. But since he's come into the UFC, Marcus Perez, Trevin Giles, Brad Tavares, he got dropped a couple of times against Brad Tavares, and that's a little bit of an eye-opener to me. Now, he still won the fight. He still established himself with his striking and with his grappling game. He has grappling, he has suplexes. I've seen him, he did against Roberto Soldic in their fight, where he can take you down, and like he has a heavy output. When I talk about his like grappling game, you've seen that one in the Trevin Giles fight, where in the Tavares fight, his output was just outstanding, and he kept on coming at Tavares and was landing those flurry of combinations with multiple strikes. Yeah, I think I can see. I've seen why the line's moved so much on what's his name, du Plessis, in recently. That it's like minus 200, I think, over here in the UK. Just let me check that out for you guys. So. Yeah, minus 190 with a comeback on Darren Till at plus 150. I mean, I can see why the money's kind of coming in on. It's hard to trust Till, but that price, I don't want anything to do with du Plessis, in all honesty. So I'm going to pick Darren Till to win a decision or a knockout. A knockout. I have kind of championed him for maybe catching a shot here with his elbow or an uppercut or a left straight. I don't know how he's going to win this fight, but I'm going to pick Darren Till. Might be a moot bet on my part, a moot pick on my part, I should say. But I just feel like, I like it as well with this one, before I forget. I like it Till he's kind of took himself away from Hamza a little bit, away from all the furore where Hamza went over to Thailand. I think he's been at Tiger Muay Thai. He's been around some really good guys from away, sacrificing himself away from his family, his 2 young kids. Or 3 young kids. I think he's got 2 in Liverpool, 1 in Brazil. But taking himself away, looks in good shape, looks really revitalised, looks ready to go. Like I say, I can't trust him betting-wise, I don't think. Pick-wise, I'm going to pick him in this one here. So Darren Till for the win. Catchweight bout between Alex Morono, who's coming in here on 5 or 6 days' notice, against Santiago Ponzinibbio. Props to Morono for really jumping in here against a really established guy at 170, even though they're fighting at 180 pounds, and he is on a run right now where he's beat Cerrone, beat Zawada, beat Mickey Gall, beat Semmelsberger. This is another big jump up caliber opposition. Maybe not as big as it would have been a couple of years ago, but still Ponzinibbio is a very, very tough guy to face and a very tough guy to really look good against, and he's a dogged competitor as Ponzinibbio, who's coming off a couple of losses himself, a couple of splits, which you'll probably feel very aggrieved about, to Jeff Neal and Michel Pereira. That was a fight of the night against Michel Pereira. It was a really fun, really, really good fight, back and forth one that went to the split. I just think that Ponzinibbio was going to kind of poke and prod him a little bit too much in this one. Use that nice straight jab that he's got, really trying to keep the movement at a pinnacle, move around. I've always thought his footwork's been fairly decent. Once he plants his feet, he can land some big shots. Morono could possibly look to try and take this to the ground, but I just don't see many aspects to kind of how he wins this fight. I'm still a little bit iffy with Morono's chin. I think that if he gets hit with something clean, that he could definitely do the stanky leg and it could be taken out. So not looked into this one a hell of a lot. The pick's going to be Ponzinibbio. I'll pick him via decision. I think Morono will tough it out for the 15 minutes and show his heart and his durability. But that's going to be my pick there, is Ponzinibbio decision. Co-main event of the night, the lad from Liverpool, Paddy Pimblett against Jared Gordon is your co-main event here. This is a big spot for Paddy to be in his third, fourth fight, whatever it may be in the UFC. And I'll tell you the betting lines already for this one. I think the betting line is a little high, but I think he's minus 225 here in the UK, where Jared Gordon is plus 225, which is quite high in Jared Gordon. I mean, he's been around, he's fought some good guys, but I do think in this fight that Jared Gordon will have spots where Paddy always makes mistakes. He's did it pretty much in his 3 UFC fights. Vendramini, he got caught with a nice shot. I don't want to say he got wobbled, but his legs kind of buckled a little bit. The Vargas fight, got taken down against Vargas, and then the Leavitt fight, Leavitt got him down and was kind of controlling a little bit. But there's always spots in this fight where he finds himself in positions where he is super aggressive. There are spots that if he gets you, you're in deep trouble. Like if he gets your back, I think he can submit a lot of people at 155, honestly. And I do think he's got power in his hands, but I think he's a little bit defensively unreliable. I do think he can be hit with big shots. I just don't think Jared's got the one-shot power to really hurt him. So on the feet, I do give Paddy an edge, but I don't think Jared's going to want to really keep this a stand-up fight. I think he will do his best to kind of mix this up. And I've seen some guys just blindly hating on Paddy Pimblett and just wanting to fade him. And I mean, at 2 plus 225, you're not getting a bad line to do that. I just think that Jared will have his spots in this fight here where he will look like he could possibly win the first round. That's probably what's going to happen, actually. I think he will end up winning the first round, maybe get a takedown, maybe get some dominant position. But as he kind of moves on, I think he might fade a little bit. And I think Paddy can go hard for 15 minutes. And I think his power can stay with him in fights. And he's had a lot of experience before he went to the UFC through Cage Warrior, some big fights on there. I mean, you look at some of the guys that Gordon's fought, Grant Dawson, Leonardo Santos, Charles Oliveira back in the day. He actually fought Paddy's former teammate, Chris Fishgold. So he has beat some guys, not saying that Fishy was one of the high caliber guys that he's fought, but still, Joaquin Silva, Diego Ferreira. I think that he will have spots in this fight, but I do think that Paddy's going to catch him with something in the second or third round. So I'm going to take Paddy Pimblett via submission. I think he gets the back and gets a submission here. And I'm actually going to think about playing a bet on Paddy Pimblett. I need to see what inside the distance actually is, but I know his submission is plus 250, I think I've seen this morning. So that's not too bad. I just think that he's going to find a way to that back and get another rear naked choke. So Paddy Pimblett moves himself onto another level with this, moving into this fight, but then I think he's going to move himself up again there. And interested to see how they match him. So yeah, and I think it's the fight that a lot of people are looking forward to in this one here. And the main event of the night, you've got Jan Blachowicz against Magomed Ankalaev. I'm seeing a little bit of love out there for Jan Blachowicz. I can't say I'm on that side. My pick will be Ankalaev. I actually think this style of matchup might really bring out some of the best in Ankalaev, in my opinion. I think that Jan will bring a fight to him at some part of this one, and I think that the overall fighting skills of Ankalaev will kind of come to the fore here. And my official pick, I'm going to say it now, is Magomed Ankalaev via knockout. I think he's going to catch Jan Blachowicz at some part of this fight. He's going to counter him with a big shot and put him out. I mean, Blachowicz, I thought his story to actually get the UFC title was actually remarkable, in my opinion. I thought that him getting there was such a great story. Beat Dominic Reyes when he won that vacant title. Then he beat Israel Adesanya. It was a big fight. I thought that Izzy was going to come up there and win a pretty comprehensive decision, but he's shown those weight classes for a reason. Lost to Glover, which I think he was carrying an injury in that one. I think Glover was just a bad matchup for him, in all honesty. And then he came and he beat Alexander Rakic in a fight where Rakic really blew his knee out in that one. And that was a little bit unfortunate for him, but to Jan's detriment, he got in there, he got the W. So, and then you got Magomed, he had that UFC debut against Paul Craig where he was winning that fight comprehensively, couple of seconds left in the fight, gets caught in a submission. But since then, he's shown he can fight many different facets. He's got submission skills. He's got knockout skills. I think he's got overall a really good striking game, kicks and combination punching. Can win the long game with his grappling. Can go 25 minutes hard there and win a kind of point-based fight there. And he's coming off, how many fights? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 fight win streak to get himself a shot here. And half of those have came via stoppage. I just think that this, stylistically, I think it's a really good matchup for him. And I think that he beats Jan Blachowicz via TKO in the mid part of this fight. So Magomed Ankalaev is going to be my new UFC light heavyweight champion. I think he's my pick in this fight. So yeah, that's my picks for UFC 282, guys. Really glad to be back breaking down some fights. Went 45 minutes here, which I wasn't expecting to. Please like, comment, subscribe if you can. I'm looking forward to next year. I'm really looking forward to really getting back into this full time, because I've been a bit of a part-time YouTuber really this year, in all honesty. So until next week, we're back for Jared Cannonier against Sean Strickland. Until then, guys, all the very, very best. Take care and enjoy the fights when they come around this weekend.